Let's get into some things. By the way, this AAF we talked a lot about yesterday. There's actually betting odds now, John, about the future of the league, which I just wanted to throw your way because we did talk a lot about this yesterday, which I believe is still a fascinating it's an unbelievable story. I still can't believe it has gotten to this point. However, there are actual betting odds out there now about the future of the league, including will the Alliance of American Football finish their first season? Minus 1,200 yes, plus 600 no. Where's the better value?
I think now that they got the $250 million, they're going to finish the season. I think the better question would be, are they going to have a second season?
There's odds on that too, by the way. Plus 150 no and minus 180 yes.
Yeah, I would lean towards no, to be honest. I think usually rich people are rich for a reason, and they understand how to make money. And I think the Carolina Hurricanes owner is going to realize, I'm not going to make money on this deal, so why move forward? That's just my 2 cents.
He said today on Pro Football Talk that once he saw the AAF, he wanted to invest. He said, quote, I found the competition compelling the way it looked on TV, the story of people having a second chance or developing.
Yeah, and that's, I think their hope is that he's fallen in love with it. It becomes sort of a labor of love project, a vanity project, and that's how they move forward. And again, that's kind of what you're betting on. You're betting on one man's psyche. Does he want to continue or not? And I think it's interesting, Charlie Ebersol keeps looking worse and worse.
Huh.
They're trying to spin this now that this had nothing to do with the fact that they had a glitch in payroll. This $250 million was coming all the time. There was always going to be different layers of funding. Now they got one reporter who's got a questionable history trying to say the XFL planted this story to try to destroy the AAF.
Wow.
It's getting wild.
This is great stuff.
Yeah, this is going to be the new TV series here. Gill's going to watch it on True TV.
and that's what I'm saying. I mean, think about the coincidence of having a glitch in payroll, and you just happen to get new financing. Come on.
This sounds like something out of the government.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie's...
I'm up for the 30 for 30 on this one, though.
Well, that's what I said. He can do his own 30 for 30.
No, it's going to be like a 28 for 28. I don't think it's got the same impact, right?
The failure of the AAF? I don't know. We'll see. There are betting
Instead of being a producer this time, he's going to be the con man now.
Right.
That's
correct.
That's the way it's looking.
Well, it's the same guy who ran the Fire Festival. You didn't know that?
I mentioned that yesterday. I compared it to the Fire Festival.
That's right.
See, they say smart minds. I lie. I was listening. I stole it.
John, I want to get your take on, because I haven't talked to you, and yesterday we got so wrapped into this AAF, but I do want to get your take on the Kaepernick thing. The NFL settled with Kaepernick, and how that makes him look. How does it make the league look? What is the message behind this whole story, which, kind of got swept under the rug a little bit, I guess, because it happened on like a news dump day, and then the weekend kind of got here. It was an odd timing, I thought anyway, for that story to kind of come out.
Well, it's one of those stories that lets you, wherever you were before the settlement happened, that's where you were afterwards. So it just confirmed the bias of each camp and how you want to spin it. Both sides gave a little bit. If you understand legal proceedings at all, the NFL was never going to lose this case. If you read the wording under the CBA, it was abundantly clear they weren't going to lose. What Mark Garagos did brilliantly, he's Colin Kaepernick's lawyer, very high-profile guy, used to these types of cases, is he got the NFL to the discovery point. So the NFL didn't want discovery being leaked out. They didn't want texts from Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft and Bob McNair saying stupid stuff. That's what they were trying to keep from hitting the public. And from Garagos' standpoint, he knows he's not going to win the case, so you settle and you move on.
Yeah, I think the big question that I think myself and others had is the settlement means what for Colin Kaepernick playing? Because on the surface, you hear his agent say, well, you got 3 teams, and now this will bring him back into the league. But then you look a little deeper, and to your point about discovery, you think, all right, well, the NFL would probably settle to make sure that he's out of the league, even though, like, they wouldn't pay. Would they be that fiscally irresponsible, John, and pay him twice, meaning pay him to shut up and then have a team?
You're right. I mean, look, a lot of people don't think he wants to play any longer. Certainly, if you look at how long he's been out of the league, it's going to be very difficult for him to get a starting job. So anybody going down that route is probably wrong. And the third part is, if he signed right away, some people have thrown out that wild conspiracy theory that the settlement is really going to be a starting quarterback. I mean, are people that dumb? Look, there are individuals in this league that certainly took a punitive action towards Colin Kaepernick in what he did. That does not prove collusion either under the law or under the CBA and how it's written from the grievance process. So those two are mutually exclusive things, number one. The second part is, if you're the NFL and you go, oh, he can't play, maybe a team like Baltimore said he can play, but he's too much of a distraction. And then all of a sudden you settle and he gets hired and he's a starting quarterback of, say, the Miami Dolphins, or some people think he's going to be the heir apparent to Tom Brady, how absurd that is. Then you're sort of admitting you colluded. It doesn't make sense. And I've talked to Jeffrey Lurie. And Jeffrey Lurie, for people that don't know him, is, pick your favorite politician. I don't care if you're conservative or liberal, but if you're a Democrat and you think Nancy Pelosi's liberal or Harry Reid or Barack Obama, understand Jeffrey Lurie is left of them. He's not a conservative guy. That's not his ideology. So to assume that, and this is how a lot of people have framed it, because it's easy to say, oh, you got a bunch of rich people, they're all conservative white men, they all have skeletons in their closet. Again, it's not true with the Jeffrey Luries of the world. Paul Allen would have been in that category. The owner, Jed York, the owner of the 49ers. Now, there's a lot that are conservative. Sure. But the whole collusion part of it was always absurd. It continues to be absurd. But the NFL could be embarrassed because Jerry Jones, Bob McNair, people like that, they do embarrassing things at times.
Well, wasn't the argument, though, John, that, and I don't know how legal of an argument this was, that all you needed were 2 teams to be on the same page?
Yeah, all you need is 2 teams or the league and 1 team. You don't need all 32 teams. So you either need Roger Goodell telling, say, the Baltimore Ravens not to sign Colin Kaepernick. Hey, if you believe that, knock yourself out.
That's absurd, correct. Now, but is it outside the realm of belief and logic that and I'm just throwing this out here, that 2 conservative owners would have something back and forth, or is that just illogical because that would be impossible to keep under wraps?
No, and that's what the NFL is saying, because I think if you have 2 conservative owners saying this guy's bad for the league, then you have certain reporters, forget about fans, certain reporters that have been in Kaepernick's camp saying that's collusion. It's not. Legally, it's not. You're allowed to give your personal opinion. And again, you can be punitive unless you enter into a formal agreement that says, we were going to sign Colin Kaepernick, but guess what? Jerry Jones called me up and said, don't sign him, and I agreed. I mean, it's just beyond absurd. It really is. And Jeffrey Lurie, again, and I only use him for effect because he is such a liberal guy, insisted should never happen. This is not how this league works. And I just think it's absurd to think any other way, to be honest.
It seems okay. So the league, how does the league look in this, where they settle this situation? Like it obviously it puts them in a poor light, don't you think?
Well, I think it puts them in a poor light with a certain group, and it puts them in a positive light with another group. I think you've always had two camps, much like society as a whole, who had confirmation bias, is what we call it in the journalism world to begin with. And it's easy to get there with a settlement. You could point in one direction or you can point in the other direction. I know there's one reporter that's been very favorable to Colin Kaepernick that had he settled for $60 to $80 million 10 minutes after the settlement happened. Now, Mark Garagos would be disbarred if he leaked that information. The league's certainly not going to leak that information. So if you want to believe that figure, which is an absurd figure, I guarantee you that off the bat, it's not even close to that. But that's how people are in today's world. It's unfortunate. I don't understand why, but that's where we are.
Yeah, and to that point, I wonder what really comes from this, and we don't know, I guess, because of the exclusivity in the contract, but there's nothing, I should say, until proven otherwise, that comes from this that will prevent somebody who might be, and I'm not saying Colin Kaepernick was, but I'm saying who might be colluded against in the future for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be anything socio-political. It can be for whatever reason. And I don't know if there's anything here that either side can say, all right, well, outside of personal gain on both sides, anything really impact deep has been made.
No, not as far as collusion. It's really difficult to prove that. And that's what I kind of said before. And I think Eric Reed being, people forget about Eric Reed being part of this particular case. I think that actually hurt Colin Kaepernick because he missed a total of 3 games before he signed. And then he just recently signed a pretty lucrative extension. So I think that actually hurt his case. And then there's the second part, which I think people don't.
Real quick,
so many.
Why did they allow that to happen? Why did Kaepernick's crew allow that to happen?
Well, because I think Mark is a really smart lawyer, and I think Mark was always going for a particular finish. Like, people assume you're trying to win the case.
Got it.
I don't think he was ever trying to win the case. He was trying to settle for as much money as he could get.
Got it.
Because he's a smart guy.
Okay, yeah, I didn't mean to jump in. I'm sorry, but I was just curious as far as why Kaepernick's crew would allow that. But the payday makes sense.
Yeah, and then when you talk, there are many reasons why people aren't employed in the NFL. Some of it's ageism. Some of it is punitive. Look, if you want to talk about collusion, real collusion, you got to start going into some deep, dark places where people don't want to go. Like, the same people that will fight for Colin Kaepernick don't understand you can't collude against somebody like Kareem Hunt or Ray Rice or a pariah, Greg Hardy, you name it, who did something horrible, and everybody doesn't care if people band together and collude them, but and prevent them from playing in the league. But from a legal standpoint, the league is in hot water if they do that. So when people say, well, you can't sign Kareem, you can't let him play, the league can't do that. It's against the law, especially when you're talking about a guy who was never prosecuted, never mind convicted of a crime. It's not possible. And I think people don't understand that.
Right. I mean, everybody just says, "Hey, if you have any integrity, you're not going to let them play." They don't make that choice.
Well, individuals can make that choice.
The team itself can say, "We are just choosing not to sign you."
Yes, exactly. You can do that on an individual basis and say, for many reasons, I don't want to take the PR hit, I'm morally against it. But the minute you have a league saying, boom, you cannot sign this player for a reason, and I use Hunt as an example because he recently signed. He's a pariah. He was never convicted of a crime, never even charged with a crime. But from the court of public opinion, he's guilty, and they would like him, at least I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people would like him banned from the league. League can't do that. They just can't.
John McMullen at JF McMullen here. By the way, the franchise numbers are out. Quarterback $25 million. So the Nick Foles stuff, that's what he would get if he gets franchised $25 million. Running back $11 million. What's that?
Meaning he's going to get traded if he gets tagged. Like there's no other reality in which he gets tagged and not traded.
No, he will not be tagged unless the Eagles. And the key here is the combine, which is coming up, and that's where agents and GMs and people get together. Wink, wink, behind the scenes. They're not supposed to negotiate till the legal tampering period, which is March 11th.
I love legal tampering.
Yeah, that's kind of an oxymoron.
Well, the NBA coined that, right?
Yeah. But that's where it'll get done. So if anything happens, if they do franchise, it'll be closer to March 5th, which is the last day. And the Eagles will not put it on them if there is any chance that $25 million will be on their books more than 2 minutes on March 13th.
All right, and by the way, you wrote the piece at 97.3 ESPN.com today. Jordan Matthews kind of coming out of nowhere and saying basically once Wentz gets out on the field, everything will be back to normal.
Yeah, I agree with him.
Was that an unprovoked thing, or like what was that about?
Well, he was on Sirius XM, so they just asked him about.
Just curious.
NFL radio about the Philly Voice piece, and he's one of Carson's best friends. I mean, they're very close.
That's why he has a job, right?
Yeah, Carson was very upset the first time when he got traded. They're very close off the field, so it's no surprise that he defended him. But I also think he's right. I mean, as soon as Nick is somewhere else, whether it's Jacksonville or another team, and this is Carson full speed ahead. First preseason game, everybody's going to be behind him from the fan base perspective.
All right, a lot of NFL stuff coming in the coming days. As you mentioned, the Combine's coming up. We've got free agency on the horizon. The draft's going to be here. It is that time of the year where it gets moving pretty quickly this off season, and we'll keep our eye on all of it. The AAF this weekend, bet Orlando. They're 15.5-point faves.
Why? Just because they're heavy favorite?
The old ball coach.
Yeah, they're killing everybody.
He's prone for a meltdown. It's coming.
All right.
He's not going to have a meltdown because he only works 4 hours a day. Then he goes golfing. He's got a great life.
Yeah, well, his team.
No, that's where the meltdown happens. In the 4 hours of stress. Come on, you're looking at this from the opposite end. It's a man who is committed to a life of leisure, and now 4 hours a week he has to go through that. He's going to let halfway through that game when they're down by 15, 16 points. He's going to look around like, what the hell's going on?
That's a fair point. You can look at it both ways.
John McMullen at JF McMullen. Thanks, pal.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, guys.